Happy New Year, yeah. So we're recording this on, what is this, January 4th?
2025.
Oh my god, I can't believe we made it this far.
This far? You mean like as a species?
Mm-hmm. Here we have our... What do we have here? We have a bunch of books.
Yes, some of our favorites from last year.
Yeah.
I'm hesitant to do like a... I don't want to ever do like a best of because I feel like that's too qualitative. But these were some of the things that really stood out and really like gave us some feelings from 2024. So I think all this stuff came out in 2024.
Pretty cool. And then, shouts to things that came out like late quarter 2023 as well, because some great books came out then.
Totally.
I know like Harkness put out a book in 2023. So did Bayer. There's been a lot of great books that came out late.
Mm-hmm. And I always think that that's the worst time to put out a book. Like I put out ATP 1 like on December 20 something.
Yeah, nobody because nobody has any bandwidth. They've like
nexus in between spaces.
Totally. It's a liminal space whereby no one has any bandwidth for anything new at all.
Yeah. And when year-end lists come out, November 1st now, that time period gets longer and longer where like if you come out after someone's best of list, but before the next year starts,
right.
It might as well not exist at all.
Totally. Just put it out again, change the color of the cover, and just re-release it as a brand new book the next year.
New for 2025.
Yeah. And everyone's like, wait, what?
But she's got a new hat.
So what do we got here?
Yeah, so I guess the most recent thing I just got was this book, which is the third part of Tokyo these days. A few of these things are like the most recent part of something that's been going on for longer.
Matsumoto, what a beast.
What a beast. Tough to talk about this book in isolation because it's the third part of 3, but it is the ending, and I read this last night. I found it like really super satisfying.
This is the last of the 3.
This is the final.
Wow.
Final of the bunch. This is the ending. So nice and concise. A lot of manga. People who don't read a lot of manga are like, ugh, too many volumes. What do I do?
600 volumes. Yeah.
But Matsumoto's is a great place to start. I think almost all of his stories. I think all of his stories that have been published in English are all complete. Like they're all done now. Number 5, Ping Pong, Tekken,
Sunny.
King Crete, Sunny.
Yeah.
And hopefully many more. He's got a bunch of other stuff that hasn't been translated yet. But I mean, he's I think one of both of our favorites.
Definitely.
And this book is about making an anthology. Basically, this is like the story of Japanese Austin English or something. Like, it's a guy getting the squad back together to like make an anthology that he thinks is really valuable. It's a guy who's worked kind of in the industry his whole life. Becomes disillusioned after a magazine he's working on gets canceled because of low prospective sales. And is like, what, fuck this, I'm going to get my favorite people together, try to bring some people out of retirement, try to get some young people involved, and put together, like, comics that he really believes in. It's tough to describe while making it sound cool, because I know me, I personally, like, really balk at stuff that's, like, about the medium that it's in. Like, comics about making comics I usually kind of hate, and movies about making movies I usually kind of hate. But I think there's a sensitive and delicate way to do it that... really taps into like the joy of making things and why this to me is a lot of like, why do I seek out new things? Like, isn't there enough shit out there? Like, haven't I read enough? Shouldn't I just be rereading things? And this book kind of reignites like a joy of, why bother making it? Why bother reading it? And it's this kind of like brings that up. And it's exactly, I think, the essence of what we want the show to be, which is like things that make you want to make things.
Yeah, I read the first 2 volumes, and a few of the things that stood out to me, obviously the artwork is fantastic. A more mature stance here, where in other Matsumoto, he's like flipping back and forth between almost naive drawing and realistic drawing, at least in the form for effect. Here, it's like pretty consistent throughout. But one of the things that stood out to me about these books was that it's the interaction with the artist and seeing the role of the editor in real time and what they actually do. Because I think the role of the editor is largely a mystery to most people who don't work in this field. And it's really like herding cats. Yeah. He's really trying to all these distinct personalities with their own vices and their own struggles. It's a lot of struggling in like you're saying, to what end? And it's like, well, how do you make something of quality? And how many people does it take? And how difficult is it to bring that out of these artists who are already great and who are at different points in their lives and struggling for different reasons? I think that's pretty like pretty fantastic to shine a light on the personalities behind the work and how each artist has to kind of break through their own blocks or their stumbles to produce the work that they make.
Yeah, and that the editor or the curator, I guess, is such a huge part of kind of like motivating a lot of these kind of personalities to continue. I think like the artist working in isolation is so prone, everybody's so prone to, you know, over criticizing yourself, getting burdened down, getting distracted, all these things. And it's nice that they have this kind of central character as like, this is kind of what an editor should be. Like there's also other editor characters in this book, some of which are more. That's an interesting dynamic in the whole thing because like sometimes the artists hate working with some of the editors and they only like working with some of the other ones because sometimes they have too much creative input. And I think the main character in this book is an editor who's like, I'm more of a curator of other people's work. I'm not the kind of person to say like this is good, this is bad, this character needs to do this character needs to do that. There's a delicate hand to that kind of editing to be just motivating enough while also being kind of critical. Like there are times where he says to the artist like, look, I don't think this is your best work. I think you're being overly precious, or I think you've lost some of like what made your other stuff kind of special. And whether he means that or not, it's kind of like it's a way to keep them going forward. So I don't think you just have to be like, you're doing great, keep it up. Like I think there are ways to be critical, constructively critical, that are
to
also
shape it,
motivating.
Like to shape it behind the scenes. There's a lot of books here, so I kind of want to keep going.
Yeah, let's do it. And I mean, I can't recommend that enough. The third one just came out; it's done. Check it out.
Let's talk about Molly Colleen O'Connell.
Yeah, so this book, not a comic, or it has comics in it, I guess. I got this at PCX, and Molly was kind enough to do this incredible drawing in it.
Philly Comics Expo.
Awesome. I don't know if this came out this year or not. I'm actually
really cool
really
rough
sure.
cut on these pages.
Yeah,
really
so
interesting look there.
This is a thing that I really would love if more artists did. It's basically like a self-published monograph of drawings, poems, stills from videos, photos of custom T-shirts that Molly's drawn over the years, but it just like it presents this amazing full artistic picture of just this like restless, creative mind. I've read through this whole book a few times since I got it, which was only a couple months ago, and I just find it totally delightful. It's beautifully printed by Colorama, and yeah, just it feels so substantial, and I think it's such a bold move to be like, you know, this isn't Chris Ware, this isn't Dan Clowes. Like I think a lot of people know who Molly is, but it's not. Usually don't see a book like this unless it's published by Fantagraphics and it's somebody that's been around for 40 years or something like that. And I think it's so bold. I want more people to do this.
Just do it now.
Take on an ambitious project.
Do it now.
Like, here's 200 pages of me, a person you might not have ever heard of before.
Right,
Which I think is just so fucking cool.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And it's also hilarious. It's strange. It's very touching. There's an interview in here in the back with Connor.
Yeah.
Who's also a great artist. And I don't know. I'm like totally dazzled by this book, and I hope it's kind of like a clarion call for other people to do this.
It is pretty cool. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah,
really.
I haven't either, right? It's not a zine. It kind of feels like a zine, but it's like 200 pages long or 150 pages, something like that. It kind of feels like something that would ordinarily be shorter, but to stretch it out like this feels just really substantial and powerful and expressive. And I'm also just a huge fan of Molly's work in general. Yeah,
it's pretty cool to see the page numbers on it too, because you'd think like with a book this big and this sprawling, that page number would be like the last thing you think of. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and it's also, I don't think that many artists are this kind of like multimedia.
Yeah, right.
You know, it helps that Molly has a really wide range of interests creatively. Like I think, but whatever. I mean, if you have, you know, when people put out sketchbook zines, I want them to be 200 pages long. You know, I want art books from everybody.
Totally.
I know it's cost prohibitive, and I don't know how Colorama was able to do this, but. I love this book. I think it's amazing.
Colorama continually putting out the hits.
Oh yeah, killing it.
That's another book that I didn't bring out, but I can. We talked about it previously, which is Sunday. I mean,
yeah,
I attribute that book to Colorama, even though, right, the most recent one was collected and published by Fanta.
Yeah, and I steered away from that one, I guess, because everyone agrees that that's the best one.
Yeah.
And also, I think that
it's a very good one. I don't know that it's the best one necessarily.
Come on.
It's very good. I mean, we go look at our other video. We just like heap praise on it for 90 minutes or whatever. But yeah, I think about Colorama when I think about that book too.
Yeah,
and that definitely deserves a place, at least a mention here. And what great company for Molly to be in.
Yeah, and their Clubhouse anthologies that they put out, I don't know if it's every year or every couple of years, but those are all amazing. They all look different. They're all kind of bound differently, and it's similar kind of like substantial, big thing you can kind of sit with.
I love this.
For a
This is
certain amount of
fantastic.
time. Yeah.
Okay, we'll get into this. We should do a whole episode on this one.
Yeah.
But let's keep it moving for the sake of what we're doing today.
Yeah, let's do
So
it.
let's talk about this book, Free Spirit News.
Yeah, Free Spirit News I got at Printed Matter. We may have actually looked at, or I think I did just a short thing for Instagram about this.
Yeah.
I got this at Printed Matter the night of the Rescue Party release.
Hell yeah.
And I picked this up and instantly I was like, this is my shit.
Yeah,
and
this
I
is
just bought it on the
amazing.
spot. And
Yeah,
I didn't know
this is-
anything about it. I'd never heard of it before, but this was like Portland, Oregon's paper rodeo, basically. It was a
Unbelievable.
free newspaper. They drew all the ads in it. It has like, bullshit weather reports and fake news and stuff. But it's not, the thing I love so much about it is that it doesn't feel random. Like there's a perspective coming editorially, speaking of editors, but you can feel that there's like a kind of progressive sort of, I guess, lefty stance, for lack of a better word, of like they're being wacky and silly and playful, but it's also pointing fingers at like things that they think are maybe morally wrong, or there's a philosophical stance to a lot of the stuff that comes through all of the other stuff, which I think some things like this don't quite have that extra level.
Right. It's not as deep.
But it's also fun. I mean, there's plenty of
It's super fun. I think it does the thing that cartoons do so well, which is like you can disguise a real message. You can disguise a real message amongst cartoons, and it'll get past a lot of those adult censors because they don't look at cartoons seriously.
Totally.
So you can really sneak in a lot of great messaging.
Is this not the most perfect like cartooning analogy? Like you take very delicate care to craft this thing you can just take a flying shit in.
Yeah. No, it is. It's also interesting that the clay itself is kind of like starts off as a ropey dump, and it's like mushed into.
Yeah, it's cyclical.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but
And then
I've had a great time with this book.
This book is fantastic.
all year.
Wow.
Every time you pick it up, I'm just like, yep.
And it really does have that paper rodeo vibe to it.
Yeah, I think
But-
they're pretty transparent about it being.
Yeah, but that's okay.
Inspired, yeah.
Right. Like I love a band that wears its influences on its sleeve, but is also doing something new with that same thing. And it's like there's a reason why I love that first band. There's a reason why I love this band, and that's okay. And those things can coexist. I mean, keep the torch burning. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
This is so fun. Yeah, I saw you pick this up and you were like immediately engrossed, and we were all leaving that thing, and it was raining a billion.
It was raining
Tons
1
of
billion.
rain. Yeah, it was raining a billion, and we ended up all at what used to be the Half King.
Yeah, which is now
in Chelsea,
something.
which is some dumb like flowers on the wall.
Yeah. But it was nice. We sat in that
It
back
was fun.
room and
It was
chatted
fun,
about
yeah.
stuff, and yeah,
Fun.
that
We got
was
to
a really
hang
fun
with
night.
Madi and
Yeah.
Pinko Joe and everybody.
This also shout out to whatever they used on the cover, like it's soft.
The foil stamp. Oh, the spongy.
the spongy.
Yeah. I like that.
stock.
That's old school. That
Yeah.
like spongy, like the old encyclopedias or whatever.
But just holding this book is like
Bibles
a joy.
actually would do that. They put like a layer of like foam in between the binding, in between
really?
the board and the
I'm not sure I've ever.
This is
actually
very
held a
cool.
Bible.
We'll have to get into this even more too. I mean, this is great. We'll see more from them. Who is the?
The names are all. There's
Yeah.
a rotating list
Oh, here
of
we go.
contributors.
Whoa.
So like, there's some basic ones.
Holy cow.
Not basic, but there's some like ones that are kind of involved in the whole process. But then
Right.
there's some. You can see a bunch of other random people. Like some big names jump out the more
Mm-hmm.
you look at some of the credits. Also, so Aiden Couch right here.
Yeah.
Joe Grillo. But like
August.
the more you. As it goes on, it becomes more and more anonymous,
I
and they
see.
talk about that kind of in the intro, which
That's
is like
cool.
at first they were like, "Here's all our art," and then they were like, "Let's just let this lie." As an
Yeah.
object.
Like, make it its own thing. Becomes
Yeah.
like a collective. That's
Right.
very cool.
And they shout them all out at the end.
All right, where should we go next?
Why don't you pick one?
Okay, so we got this from James Collier.
I haven't read
and
this one yet, but I
It
do
just
like
came
James
out. We got a nice little handwritten note as well.
we
What a
did?
sweetie.
Whoa, my name's on it too.
Yeah, well, it's to both of us.
Oh.
Yeah. What a doll.
He's in Canada.
Correct.
right?
And I pulled this as for one of my favorites of
Was
2024.
this published? Yeah, Wig Shop. I think has been
Wig
putting
Shop,
out
yeah.
James's work. Shout out to Wig
I
Shop.
just love the lived-in line
Mm-hmm.
that sags, and all the stuff feels like The characters are like both familiar and new at the same time, which I think is done really well.
Great, like minimal background too. It's like just enough info.
Yeah, James really knows their stuff, you know?
Yeah, and a younger fella, I think.
Yeah.
James is like not that hardened in the game.
But a great cartoonist in his own right, and really beautiful imagery. I remember The Lonesome Shepherd was the first thing I saw from them.
Which, I love the colors in this book.
Yeah,
really
the
nice.
palette is beautiful. It's like just left to center, you know? That's kind of like adulterated color is what I like to say.
Adulterated?
The less used color. Color that looks like it's been messed with a little, you know? Like you take a palette and you shift it.
Cool.
Yeah, this is a beautiful book. Thank you very much, James, for this. As always, if you want to send us your comics, you can reach out to us on Instagram. Mostly Mike does the heavy lifting on the Instagram side, so...
I do. I try to... my personal Instagram is such just like a sea of misery.
Yeah.
It's such a delight to switch over to the comics people want and be like, oh, look at all this beautiful art and animation and sculpture and like the nice messages that people send us. I kind of just want to delete my personal one and just use the comics.
Like there's hope. There's hope still in the world.
So just if you focus your attention on positive things, like your brain instantly feels better.
This is a book you brought onto my radar.
Yeah. Have you had a chance to read this yet? It's okay.
No, I haven't.
This is a hefty one.
We read so many comics for Comics Club that I'm off on like back against the wall. And honestly, I think in 2024, I was just really afraid of having too many books. Like I've reached this critical mass now where like I'm full. Like my apartment is full. Like I cannot bring in any more books. So I have to get rid of some books before I can bring in some new ones. So this is really refreshing for me as well because it's like I need to catch up on my 2024 reading.
Yeah, cool. So Austin English brought this into Domino, and I was just immediately interested in the cover. And then he had also put a message when he posted it, like about this part, which he's like, I think he might be involved in some of this stuff. It's kind of autobiographical. I don't know. Also, look at this insane cover.
It's
like,
pretty gnarly.
Like nobody puts out a cover that has just like disgusting violence on it.
Yeah,
sex, drug, violence. It's really like beating you over the head, this whole thing. So the thing I like the most about this book is that that's just the start of the story. And it takes these I'm always hesitant to talk too much about this book because I don't want to spoil anything.
Yeah.
But the first part of this book is so fucking gnarly and brutal, and it's just like drugs and fucking and shooting and guts, and it's like really nasty. And then it takes like a lot of those characters in a wildly different direction, and by the end becomes a completely different book, like a 500% different story.
That's amazing.
That is like, but it's rooting the story and those characters in these situations that are just like awful, but it's kind of, I don't know, I really don't want to talk too much about it.
Well, let's not talk too much about it.
But it's like, it's one of those things that it's like an empathy builder. It's like these people are doing these things because they're in certain circumstances that encourage that, or in certain kind of social situations where like these, it's like desperation and inertia and all these different things, and then it shows like what those people can later be if given the opportunity to do something else. You know, if you take the characters at the beginning of this,
hopeful message.
Yeah, if you take all the characters in the beginning of this and you throw them all in prison, they don't get to then become the people they become later in this book. And so I think this isn't called small violences; it's called small justices. And I think there's a certain amount of like, what if you let people grow out of this criminality and give them opportunities to do other things? They can become this kind of beautiful community of people. And so I think this book is really special in being able to do that, especially because it really is just like, if you like violence, this is the book for you. And then it ends up being about something totally different, which I really respect and
I like
admire.
that. And this is by Chester Freeze?
No, this is by
that's the pull quote.
Steven
Sorry.
Something. This guy's in Australia, apparently. Austin just told me recently that he's actually Steve Smith.
Okay.
And that he's also much older. Like a lot of, like, he speculated that he might be in his like 70s or 80s. We're not really sure.
Steve Smith. Okay.
But he's Australian, and it's like he's trying to get some more of. I think Austin's trying to get some more of his stuff over here, and I'll read it all. I thought that book was incredible.
That's awesome. All right, where should we go next?
Whatever, man. Keep flipping.
All right. How about Zoo by Anand?
Yeah, Anand. We talked about the Zoo book that Bubbles put out on a very early episode, maybe like episode 2 or something.
Yeah.
And then this is the 4th issue. So the Zoo book collects, I think, not all, but a lot of what was in Zoo 1 through 3, and Zoo 4 is a newest issue. Love this, like
the tipped
in beginning and end, which is cool. And
love the drawing.
Oh my god, Anand's drawing is like, it's like how I want to draw, kind of. anytime I look at his work, I'm like, God, I gotta loosen up a little bit.
I really like Anand's drawing.
And it's like, yeah, it's precise, but it's loose. You know, going back to weather, like he draws amazing weather, rainstorm. There's another weather thing later in this that I think is so great.
There's something you have to learn.
This shit is so awesome.
There's something you have to learn about drawing weather, which is like being okay with crossing out your own drawing.
Yeah, and like that's something that I never do. Like everything's got to be readable and stuff. But just like I mean, like that's a thunderstorm right there. Like
oh yeah,
you can't even see the ground.
Yeah. Just attacking the page.
It's great. And so there's like 5 short stories in here. They're all touching and surreal and just delightful. I mean, Anand, anything Anand puts out, I'm instantly on board, interested. I hope he makes comics forever.
There's a little bite out of there.
Yeah. It's like it got messed up somewhere. In some.
I thought this was like when you did the corner of the page missing on purpose, like because there's like a character biting it.
I haven't seen another one, so I'm not sure.
All right, here we have Star of Swan by Margot Ferrick.
Yeah, this book is a bit of a mystery.
Ooh, I love it already.
One of my favorite responses when I'm reading a book is I finish it and I'm like, I have no fucking idea what just happened to that book, but I'm really excited to read it again. So I've read through this like 4 times now, I think, and every time I feel like my own... It's not that there's a right way to read it or a wrong way to read it. I feel like my own interpretation or my own feelings about it are getting closer and closer to something like that I can really latch onto. And that's there's like no higher compliment than that for me. It's like if it's a thing I can read many, many, many times and everything I'm like slightly getting something else out of it, that's the shit. And like so many of these panels are like, you look at the panel at first and you're just like, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
And then you have to read the whole thing and then go back to it to kind of get a context for it. I think this book is genius, and has a totally gonzo ending. Which is impossible to spoil, and B, I'm totally not even sure what exactly happens in it.
I really want to check this out.
It's great.
This looks so good.
Margot put out 2 books this year.
I love the art too. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and I think if this was less, look at that faucet's amazing.
So good, and this resembles the swan as well, like the same shapes.
And so there's a lot of that stuff. There's a lot of like mirroring shapes and mirroring forms. Cool. This is like a total work of genius, I think. I can't recommend this one highly enough.
Good job. We have so much good stuff here that it's kind of intimidating. Let's look at Steven's book.
Yeah, so Steven, this is the 4th issue. This one came out this year. I bought all 4 of these from Steven at CXC. I had never met Steven before.
Steven was at the TCAF in Toronto, where we met. He was like a guest of honor there.
Oh, cool.
He'd won some award, I think, too, for his book.
It's well-deserved. So this is... I read all 4 of these in one sitting. I was totally into these. It's kind of slice of life drama, but full of like... It's like coming back to your hometown and like meeting people and re-meeting people, but it's another thing that's hard to summarize and describe without making it sound kind of trite and contrived and boring. But I just love the way he draws, and I think these characters are really rich and really. The writing is great, the dialogue is great, and the lettering is really cool. Like it's clear that Stephen has read Cerebus. Like there's a lot of kind of just really illustrated lettering. Like this kind of stuff I think is really, really cool, but it's not derivative in any way. Like it really suits what's going on the page.
Really great page compositions too, like you know, doing interesting things with the panel, experimenting with the form, changing the layouts.
Yeah, and it serves a story. It's never done for a gimmick. I think like throughout all 4 of these issues are really great. I think that each one kind of gets like progressively, I don't want to say better, but like the drawing quality is like tighter.
Well, you learn the craft. I mean, you just do improve your craft. I think that's one of the hardest things to do is you have to just make books to get better at the visual storytelling part of it.
Totally. And
like there's no way to cheat that into reality. Like it shows up on the page because you've done it.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's like better, but it's a more fully formed version of the thing.
I love this.
So this is the most recent one. It's ongoing. Highly recommend it. I hope somebody collects it at some point. I think this is great stuff.
And Steven's a really sweet man. He's a good dude.
He's also a big dude. He looks real strong.
He's got those big arms. He looks like a fucking Disney prince.
Yeah, he does. He's like Gaston. He's like the nice Gaston.
So, friend of the channel. I said I wasn't going to say friend of the channel. But Floyd Tangeman is definitely a friend of the channel. I just bumped into Floyd the other day on the street making a mural around the corner from here. And here we have their most recent, one of their more recent. I mean,
Floyd's putting shit out constantly.
He is just an indomitable force to be reckoned with here. And you can see it in the drawing and the energy that hits the page.
Oh, yeah. If the prevailing spirit of the show is like, what are the things that make you want to draw? Like, this is it. Like, this book is probably 24 pages, and like, after 2, you want to go do something.
100%. I want to draw right now.
Yeah. Just the energy of this stuff. And he worked on this, I think, over 2 years.
And this is a maniacal amount of mark making on every page. Like
insane. I mean, I read this before I got reading glasses, and I liked it. And I liked it even more after I got reading glasses.
Oh, you got some readers.
Yeah. I got readers.
Well, we're going to keep doing the channel even when we can barely stand.
But so many... I wouldn't even say that Floyd has a style. Like, Floyd's style is dump it all out, and it's almost like collage drawing or something. It's like there's so many different styles working together on every page. And then this one also kind of inhabits like a place. There's something special about this particular comic I thought was so cool, where like they're referring to different characters and they're referring to different sort of structures within whatever this myopia world is. And it's kind of vaguely philosophical, but it's not beating you over the head over stuff. I think sometimes, especially younger cartoonists, they try to like, if they're being philosophical, they try to like put a pin on it and being like, and that's the way this is gonna be, and this is way more open-ended, way more thoughtful. And I just, every time I've looked through this, I come away being like,
I think it's a trap. Because you want to make your own conclusions, it's a trap to not include those conclusions when you're thinking philosophically. I think that it's a very difficult thing to do, to just stop short of giving someone an answer and letting them figure out the answer for themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm reading a book right now in which the opposite is evident, where they keep telling me what I'm supposed to think and feel about each, illusion or examination they're doing on the page, and they keep telling me, and I'm like, okay, this is a good lesson. One of the things that I admire most about Floyd is the ability to focus the directionless fury, the energy that is like just seemingly bursting from them, and they manage to focus it on the page, which is, I think, very skillful, and it comes through in this drawing. It's really, really great.
Yeah, and the mark making and the tools. Something like this is so loose, and then something like this is so tight. There's such a nice push and pull of like. Yeah. At what point do things need to be more expressive? At what point are they going to be really refined? And whether those are conscious decisions, who knows? But like such a wide range of skills.
Really great stuff. Good job, Floyd.
Good job.
All right, what do we got next?
This was edited by Floyd.
Okay, yeah, we can talk about that.
That one is tough to summarize.
This is Cowlick. It's an anthology, right?
Anthology, yeah. It's really all over the place.
So we got a lot of stuff here. This is Molly?
So the contributors are in the back.
Okay, let's go to the back real quick.
I don't know if they're in order or not. But I really love this little missive down here. Thank you. This issue of Cowlick is also the peace, love, friendship, forgiveness, and unity issue. Despite our many differences, we can still come together on the page. Everyone is an artist. Now is more important than ever. Do not despair. Speak loud and clear. I love that.
That's great. Yeah, I remember when they did this drawing of the genocide. But yeah, we have a really great, like, Aoi Lee. There's a lot of names here. Some people I don't know, and some people I do.
There's a lot I don't know, and there's actually a lot of these are just one page or just
Juliet,
like little bits.
Austin, Floyd.
Yeah, Ashton, Matt Faber.
Max.
James Tonra. And this book is great and a I think important standout from the year just because it is highlighting all these names of people that are like, there were a lot of anthologies came out this year, and I think almost all of them were really cool and really interesting. I picked this one kind of at random out of that bunch. I don't think it's better or worse than any of the others.
It's fantastic, though.
It's if you're looking for a place to start, if anyone's interested in like alternative
scene.
I don't want to say alternative, that's such a lame word. If anyone's interested in like
what's happening now,
expressive contemporary cartooning, I guess this is a great place to start.
Yeah, I see it. Some of the best from some of the best and brightest. These are the names that constantly show up on the channel too. So this is a nice little almanac in searching out some of the names that we're less familiar with. I mean, Floyd's doing great work for us.
That was Cramdy.
Yeah, Cramdy. What's up? Shouts to Cramdy. I mean, it's full of great drawing. I mean, look at it. It's fantastic.
And I think the more of this stuff I look at, you can kind of see a lot of these people are friends.
Sure.
Also, and you can kind of see them responding to each other.
Totally.
I love this panel so much because like the people in the chairs look like the chairs. So weird. But you can kind of feel them like feeding off each other's energy. Maybe not stylistically, but there's like
conversation.
It's a scene. Like it's energizing. It's cool.
100%. Yeah, this is great. All right. Well, and speaking of anthologies, let's look at one of the big ones that came out this year. Which
I think there were 2 or 3 of these came out this year. Maybe?
Yeah, I know I got at least one more.
Well, there's one that's very similar to that Cowlick anthology.
Right. Yes.
A lot of the same.
And we looked at that on the channel. But here we have a cover by
Shroud.
Yeah, Shroud, yeah.
There's
and
Gabe right
Gabe's
there.
right on the cover there, yeah. And this comes on the heels of this like thing that happened with Desert Island, which was they lost their lease and were going to be unceremoniously kicked out of their space, but did a crowdfund and in 2 days got like $90,000
Something like that,
raised. And then Gabe was like, well, I don't want to just funnel this into this greedy landlord's maw. Like, it seems like that's not the right move. So even though moving is hard to do, Gabe found another spot down the street. And now they're right between Fly Right Tattoo and Rock and Rolla. Is that the name of that bar on the corner of Metropolitan? Right by the BQE?
Isn't that where Union Pool is?
No. It's across the triangle from Union Pool.
Right.
Like, that intersection's so weird. It is very close to there, but it's
yeah.
like, it's on Metropolitan. As you were about to cross under the BQE, you know, it's right there on the corner. So
Looks like a great space.
yeah, it looks amazing.
And the way he described it too is like, I think he just was walking by that area and was talking to is friendly with the woman who had that other space. The other space was like a lingerie store, I think.
Yeah, it was like a plus size lingerie store.
Yeah, and she had opened a second location, a bigger location in Greenpoint, I think. And I don't know if this is interesting or not, but I thought it's interesting. And then, so apparently that space was so successful, it was taking all of her stock and all of her employees to run the bigger space, that this smaller space was now, she couldn't do
closed
both.
it,
Yeah,
yeah.
but she still had a lease on it.
That makes
so
sense.
she introduced Gabe to the landlord, who lived right upstairs, and almost on the same day that they met, I think the guy was just like, oh, you're the Desert Island guy. Like, yeah, let's do it. 10 years. Come on, let's go.
Yeah, I love
and like,
that.
what a rare New York experience to be like, here's a pleasant real estate exchange.
It goes back to this New York thing where there's so many people and so many things happening and ending, starting and beginning, that you can just, there's energy here. You can shape it and things can happen. You know, there's opportunity because there's so many people interacting.
Right, and that's a situation born out of community, not born out of capital. Like that, that's a
Right.
personal connection. And I think like this is the kind of shit that keeps me from falling into the pit, which is like,
Yeah.
as long as we are together in these kinds of things, we can make opportunities happen. I think the spirit of a lot of the stuff we're looking at here is togetherness and community. Whether it's even if it's a book made by one person, there's an expressive nature of collaboration and reaching out to each other, which is why I think there's so many comics that I think are just like up their own ass about something. I can't care about that stuff anymore.
Yeah.
Like I want to feel connected. I want to feel like a part of something, because everything else is just trying to shit on us all the time.
Right, yeah. I think that Josh said something really interesting, which is like there's a lot of dark forces working upon us constantly. And so I think the only way through that is community. I think you're right. And I think I was talking about that in the previous video that I posted, which was, you know, you have to help other people make their dreams come true, like through service, through acts of service. And I think this type of thing is service. You're leaving something for the conversation, for posterity, for everyone to have access to, and hopefully help lift them up into a place where they have their own personal power.
Yeah.
Where they can create something for the next wave, you know, and it goes on like that. But look, speaking of community, I mean, Shroud, Burns, Mejias, Spiegelman, Griffith, Viro, I don't know how to say her name.
Haifish?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the name a million times. Mark Bell, Thurber, DeForge. It goes on and on and on.
Murderers
I'll lose breath before I'm able to show. But every single one of these, it's a kind of who's who of indie comics.
And also, like, this is an incredible act of curation too, because it's like Caroline Cash is in their 20s probably, right?
Yeah.
Gary Panter is 70 maybe.
Sure.
I mean, the
Yeah.
age range between contributors on this is wonderful. This is like the old, the new. No one's separate. No one's above. No one's below. This is one flattening of this like incredible art form that we have.
Yeah, pretty impressive. Great list of.
Heather Benjamin has the most bang and centerfold in this. It's out of control.
I love it. Is it by luck? You know that to be on the fold is probably pretty great.
Well, it's also like it deserves to be. You'll see it. It deserves to be the size that it is.
Yeah. I mean,
but
great.
shout out to Gabe to be doing this as a swan song for the old space. Like this is a perfect little eulogy.
This is wonderful.
This is just perfect. And another thing that, like, I don't know, on the surface would seem like it's kind of random, but the more you read through it, you're like, no, this fits. Like, this stuff makes sense as an object.
I love Mark Bell's work.
Yeah, same. I
Such
want
a
to get that
big
little
fan.
book that George has.
Shouts to everyone in this.
This was, I think, the person who did the Desert Island logo.
Yes.
The camels.
Yeah. And they've done other stuff too for Desert Island.
And I think they were the first. I think Gabe said they were the first one to send in a rescue party.
Oh, right. You know, DeForge. I didn't realize this, but DeForge had such a hand in Adventure Time.
Oh yeah,
his name's on like every episode.
Mm-hmm. Man, I show Adventure Time to the kids all the time. Like if it's around the holidays, I'll show them like the one where they learn about the Ice King's tragic backstory.
Yeah, I just watched that
There's
one.
like an Adventure Time episode for every instance.
Yeah. You know, I'll put that on when I'm just like folding laundry or whatever, when I want just some kind of something that I can look up to every once in a while. We started to watch a show last night, and it immediately starts with like, a serial killer. Why did you stab and rape them? And I'm like, turn this off.
Yeah.
Like, turn it off right now.
Yeah.
It didn't last like 5 seconds. I was like, I don't want that in my brain.
Yeah.
And so I'll put on Adventure Time because at least then I get some jokes. I get some cool sci-fi. I get some like philosophical bent, you know.
There's also a staggering amount of lore. I was talking to one of my students who's
Yeah.
in 3rd grade. While this was on, he came over to, I think before the holidays we were watching. So, yeah, here you go. Look at this shit. It's so good.
It's wild.
But I have not seen all of Adventure Time, and he spent probably 5 minutes breaking down like the different timelines and dimensions.
Right.
Oh, this is also Margot, I think, from the Swan book.
Yeah.
Like Adventure Time's pretty complicated.
It is,
Pretty,
yeah.
Pretty
It's a big world.
pretty layered, but also very funny. This is also a great place to start if you need recommendations or whatever. This one's
If you need a primer,
so funny.
if you need a primer for comics as they, you know, as it stands today, this is a great place to start.
Yeah, and these are free usually at the store. The store's closed now, but I think
It'll
you've
open
been
again.
able to pick these up at places like Partners and Son. They'll carry them for a few bucks, or
Right.
they'll throw them into an order or something like that.
That's true.
I think Gabe's been sending those out. Although I don't know about this one because it's the last one. Who knows?
Sure.
I love the Jordan Crane one, and I think that's a really sweet one.
It looks really nice too. You can't beat that 4-color on newsprint, you know?
Yeah, and I got 2 of these. I got one for each of us, and I opened them up to kind of compare them because, like, especially on the newsprint, they slip a lot, and everyone is different and have their own kind of unique qualities. There's Nick Garcia, Gabriel Bell.
Very cool stuff. Yeah, this is amazing. I mean, what a great piece. What a great, just encapsulating the time, Desert Island, a real special place that I'm happy to have been a part of. Also, issue 43. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and they're all free.
Yeah, pretty cool
I'm not-
stuff.
I'm
Talk
not-
about
I'm not really sure
fostering
how he does that.
fostering community. Well, he's always working on something. Every time you go in there, he's like, "Sorry, I'm just finishing this thing." Like he's doing.
So what is this guy?
Okay, so Jordan Speer is a guy that goes by the name of Beef Strong.
Beef Strong?
Beef Strong
Okay, on the gram or
on Instagram. Yeah. So this was a book that I saw and immediately was like, "This is my jam." Like,
Yeah, I can see that instantly. I mean, Kristen said that earlier. Like, oh, this looks like a U-book.
Yeah, this is totally my jam. It's like fantasy. It's influenced by like Corbin and old
Also, like,
cartoons.
Masters of the Universe.
Yeah, definitely like it has He-Man. It's got Dungeons and Dragons
Yeah,
vibes.
this is totally Corbin's He-Man.
It has like, you know, it reminds me of the old Alex Toth cartoons, right? And it's telling this narrative without words. So I thought it was really like, it was immediately entrancing to me when I saw it. I was like, wow, this is so lush. It's so beautiful. I only seen a couple pages and I was like, I'm buying that immediately.
Yeah. And I saw this was published by McSweeney's, I guess, ostensibly as a children's book?
Yeah, so I didn't know that until today when I was looking at the back matter, and it says a children's book, but I mean, this is a comic too. I mean, the sequential art here is evident. There's a story happening, and you know, it's
That fucking machine is awesome.
Yeah,
it's
it's
war
so
rig
cool. That's what I'm
thing.
saying.
It's
Yeah,
so cool.
The creativity on the page is amazing. It's also the story is dialectical, so there are, you know, opposing forces working against each other, and just to see the vastness, like we talked about world building, like the vastness of this world, the scale and scope of it is really great. And so here we meet our protagonist, and they go on a journey, and we were talking also earlier about how like leave some open-ended room for interpretation. I think wordless comics are really great at that when done well, is that they do leave a lot of room for interpretation. They do leave a lot of space to dream into and to create your own associations. Like, what's this character's story? You know, it's like you can create like miniature stories within. And there's something amazing about this texture that they're able to it almost looks like early video game art or like early internet art, but it's through this lens where it's like really mature and really hyper detailed at the same time. So they're like, it feels like they really got away with something here.
Yeah.
Like I'm guessing it's digital, but I don't know that. So maybe there are like analog components to it.
Yeah, it also has this quality of like, I think a lot of people use digital coloring, and I'm not calling it anybody in particular, but I think a lot of times it's like, well, I'll just color it digitally because it'll be faster and easier. Whereas this feels like someone who's really using the power of digital tools to create the aesthetic that they want. Like this feels very intentional. It's not like I'm gonna draw it and then click in all the colors.
Right.
This is like I'm gonna figure out how to use these tools to make it feel and look the way I want.
It's
which
very
is way more
skillful.
interesting.
It's very skillful. I almost wonder if
got cuts on the bottom of the screen. Like, it's a great little detail.
I almost wonder if they used a software to render the environments, because the environments have this like 3D modeling kind of vibe
like-
to them,
like
and then they
Blender or something?
apply a texture. Yeah, like to me, some of this looks like it might have been made in a game engine design, like a video game engine, and then stills are captured from it. But regardless of any of that, and that's not a pejorative statement, I love this. I think it's fantastic,
amazing.
and it makes me want to get in this world. Like,
It reminds me a little bit of Ian McKay's like prints. Have you ever seen it? Where I think he makes like a sculpture out of clay.
Oh, yeah,
and then
yeah.
like photographs it, but then also colors it in Photoshop, and then prints it on Rezo. So it looks similar to this, has a really tactile feel, but it's I don't know. It straddles that line of like I'm not sure how this is made, and I kind of
Totally.
don't want to know. Like,
Yeah.
especially for this, I'm kind of like
yeah, I don't want to know.
I don't really want to know. It just looks like magic.
Exactly. And magic is a great word, because that's one of my guiding principles is like when I see the magic, you know, to me it makes me feel like we can do anything.
Yeah, I would have loved this as a kid.
And
I love it now too.
The textures in this are just unbelievable.
and the colors, the
spookiness, the color's amazing.
very
That's
purposeful colors.
That's actually why I pulled it, because not only did it come in 2024, but we had talked about doing a color episode. So I was also like, well, I have the perfect book for the colors, you know?
just intelligent color theory, like this highlight of yellow and this highlight of blue and the purples in between. Like, I don't know, it's directive, and it's also
Very
mood
smart.
setting. It's really intentional.
Very smart, very skillful. And this is kind of what it has, I don't want to throw shade, but this has what I wished the mysteries had. Like, the mysteries from Watterson.
Oh yeah,
Watterson set up a place where I thought it was going to be something like this.
Yeah.
And it maybe we got to relook at that book. But
maybe it's because there's words in it. Maybe
did
the
that
words
come out in 2024?
No.
No?
I think that was like 2022 or something.
Man, the time just...
What is
Smash Mouth was right. The years start coming, they don't stop coming.
R.I.P. Rest in power to our boy. What's
Anyway.
the Smash Mouth guy's name?
I don't know. I'll never know. But this is a great book, and I love it very much. And anyone should go get it. Check out Beef Strong on Instagram. We'll put it up as we normally do. Jordan, very well done. Love this prismatic foil emboss.
Oh yeah, it's a lovely book.
Love everything about this book. It was well worth the wait. And you know what? I got to give a shout out to McSweeney's here, because a moderately priced tome at $18.99.
Yeah, there you go.
You'd think this book would be like $40 or whatever by today's standards.
McSweeney's a funny story. I mean, they've gotten a lot of heat, I think, over the years of being like too twee or too precious about stuff or whatever. But like, they've published some of my favorite books of all time.
Yeah. I want to get into them more as a publisher. I think we could look at more of their offerings, because if they have like, you know, talent hunters on the ground that are able to pick up stuff like Jordan's book, then it bodes well for me anyway, where I want to see more.
Yeah.
One of the best in the biz right here, the Furious West Wind.
Doesn't get any better than this.
Lolly's amazing. I mean, what a force to be reckoned with.
This book is ridiculous. I have a hard time talking about this book without just like babbling all over myself. I spoke to Lolly briefly about this and probably just babbled all over myself to them at the table, but This is another one like that Swan book where I read the whole thing and I was like, I don't know what the fuck just happened, but I love that experience and I can't wait to go back to it. This bookmark is probably like round 3 of going through these stories.
Very
so
cool.
it's a collection of short stories. The entire book is just perfectly printed and assembled by perfectly acceptable. They just did everything wonderfully. You know, the paper stocks, the color choices, the formatting of these stories. And each one of these things is just a sliver of like an enormous universe. Like it feels like you're peeking into not only a person's brain but also a place. I mean the colors are so basic. It's kind of hard. You flip through this and you're kind of just like, wow, this is a lot of one thing. But the sheer amount of ideas and philosophy and humor in this thing. I mean, I feel like you could read one book over and over again and every time just pull something else out of it. It's one of those things that feels like it's slightly coming into focus every time you look at it, and it's overwhelming, and it's like it takes effort, and I think that's rare to say about comics. That like, you know, we read so many comics and a lot of them are good and they're fun and cool, but they don't always take the same kind of effort that like I think great literature maybe expects of the reader. And I like how challenging this book is and how it really calls on you, the reader, to like put yourself in it. It's not a casual experience, which I think is like really huge praise for me.
Yeah, I think we see her read some of this?
Yeah, it was the grandmother one. I forget. It's like towards the back.
It was wild.
And yeah, Lally read the whole thing, and I think the whole audience was just sort of like mystified and dazzled and overwhelmed by it, but in a really enjoyable way.
Yeah, I remember reading it or listening to them read it and thinking afterwards like, whoa, she's in the 35th century.
Yeah, like light years ahead.
I just feel like she's in another time. She's like existent 2 times at once.
Yeah, where's the fucking?
Because she's bringing forth like stories that may confuse you, and I think
this one, 10 Rennie City a day in 10 Rennie with Grandma hologram.
Ganma
hologram. Sorry.
I think when I heard that reading, I was like, I think what you were saying really does speak well to that experience, which is it demands that you're present.
Yeah.
It demands that you're present because it's giving you clues that you have to figure out in real time as the story's progressing. Mm-hmm. And you're trying to adjust your brain to what that reality is. And you're coming short most of the time in a great way that I think is really intriguing. There's like a built-in mystery that drives you along with the plot. And then there's no shortage of like great language and great imagery. Obviously.
Yeah, I liken stuff like this to something like a, I don't know, post-rock album or something, like a Godspeed You Black Emperor album or something that where the first time you hear it, it's like you're like intrigued, but it's kind of impenetrable,
right?
And you have to listen to the whole thing, and you're like, I don't really know what the shape of this thing is, but I now know how big it is. And now it's almost like it's a big castle or something. Like at first you kind of walk around the castle and you're like, okay, now I know how big the castle is. Now I have to get into the castle. So you kind of start scaling the wall, and then you get into one room, and then you explore another room. And it's like, over time you're able to kind of get a sense of what's in this thing, but it takes time and it takes effort, and you're just not going to get it the first time.
Right.
It's a thing that makes me feel like dumb and intrigued, which I think is a great combination.
That's fantastic. Like you stand before any great work and you're just like, oh man.
It's like, damn, but also, yeah.
Yeah, right. Like I gotta get started.
Yeah. And also the other thing I love about Lolly is that everything Lolly makes is wildly different from everything else. Like Grip is silent. Like Grip has no words in it. But Lolly's a tremendous writer. Like I think an incredible, insightful writer. And then Hot Dog Beach is not silent, but it's hilarious. It's like, it's goofy, it's fun, it's wacky, it's like Looney Tunes, and this is something else entirely.
Very cool.
Just like exploring all kinds of different avenues, like a highest possible recommendation.
Well, comics people, there you have it. We did our best to bring 2024 to a raucous close.
Yeah.
With all the amazing works from so many amazing authors.
I think I read the most comics of my adult life in 2024. Probably just because we did so many shows and we were getting so much stuff for the channel.
That's true. We did a lot of shows.
But I read a shit ton of stuff this year, to the point where I only read a couple novels, which is fine. But whatever. Thanks for making art, everybody.
What an amazing 2024, and we look forward to many more. So we'll see you out on the tables. And until then, I mean, what's our next show? Mocha?
Tabling show? Mocha or multiple formats, I think is before. That's the Boston one.
Okay.
We have Boston, Pittsburgh.
Well, we applied.
Mocha,
We have applications in those.
TCAF.
Did we get those?
We're putting that energy out.
Oh yeah. Okay. All right. Sure.
That positive energy. We'll be
Let's
at all
do
these
it.
places.
We'll be doing a lot more shows this year for sure. It's
We'll be
really
at
fun.
show. Every show that happens, we'll be there.
I can't wait. I want to be at every single one. We'll dub little deputies to go in our place. We'll make Mike and Nick mad. And they can stand there and jump up and down and yell at people.
Sounds great.
All right. Well, until next time. Thanks for coming out.
Toodles.
Later.